The battlefield was silent now. The great clash of ships that had shaken the stars only hours before had ended in broken metal, floating corpses and drifting pieces of fire. The fight had moved far away, leaving behind the ruins of machines and the silence of space. In the middle of this wreckage, a large warship of the Valari Dominion lay cracked open, its silver hull torn apart by human plasma fire. Once it had been a proud ship, carrying thousands of warriors and banners of victory. Now it was nothing more than a broken carcass, its power fading, its weapons useless, and its crew either dead or gone. Inside one of the damaged halls, a single figure still breathed. She was Princess Lyrana of the Valari Dominion, heir to the throne and commander of this fleet. She lay on the floor, armor dented, her golden crest torn from her helm. Her right arm hung weakly at her side, and a long gash across her shoulder burned with pain. Her breaths were shallow, her vision blurred. She could feel the life slowly leaving her body, and she knew that no help would come. Her fleet had retreated hours ago, leaving her behind with the wreck. The Valari Dominion did not waste resources on the weak. If a commander fell, another would rise. That was the way of her people. She coughed, tasting blood on her lips, and tried to push herself upright. The metal floor was cold against her skin, the lights above flickering dimly. She thought of her throne, her people, her duty, and she thought of how it would all end here, in silence, far from her home. Her eyes closed for a moment. Maybe this was justice. Maybe her failure as commander had earned her this fate. But then, through the broken hull of the ship, a strange light appeared. Not the cold light of stars, not the red glow of fire, but a steady white beam sweeping across the ruins. At first, she thought it was only her mind failing. But soon she heard voices echoing faintly through the corridors, voices not of Valari but of another tongue, harsh, clipped, full of strange rhythm, human voices. Her eyes widened. She had been raised to hate these voices, to fear them. Humans were the stubborn enemy, the invaders who refused to surrender, the ones who would burn their own ships rather than let others capture them. Her teachers had called them dangerous beasts wrapped in the shape of men, and now those same voices were drawing nearer. Lyrana dragged herself into the shadow of a broken pillar, trying to stay hidden. If the humans found her, they would kill her, or worse. She was too weak to fight. She pressed her back to the cold wall and tried to hold her breath. The sound of boots echoed down the metal floor. A group of human soldiers appeared in the wreckage, flashlights sweeping the halls. Their armor was different from the sleek Valari style. It was heavier, scratched, and dented, as if built not for beauty, but for survival. At their head walked a tall man with broad shoulders and a scar running across his jaw. His helmet was off, clipped to his belt, and his eyes were sharp as they scanned the shadows. He carried a rifle in one hand, the other gesturing to his squad as they moved carefully through the wreck. "Check for survivors," he said, his voice firm but calm. The soldiers began to spread out, searching broken chambers, lifting debris. Lyrana's heart pounded in her chest. She pressed herself further back, praying their lights would not fall on her. But then, fate betrayed her. A loose piece of metal slid beneath her foot, clattering against the floor. The sound was small, but in the silence, it was sharp as thunder. The man's head snapped toward her hiding place. His rifle lifted instantly, his eyes narrowing. Slowly, step by step, he moved closer, the light from his squad sweeping over her broken armor, her golden crest, her face pale with weakness. The humans froze. They had found her. "Contact," one of the soldiers said, raising his weapon. The man held up his hand. "Wait." He stepped closer, lowering his rifle just enough to show he was not firing yet. His eyes studied her with something she could not name. It was not hatred. It was not fear. It was concern. Lyrana stared back at him, her breathing shallow. She tried to speak, but her voice was a rasp. "Do it," she whispered. "End it." The soldiers behind him exchanged glances. One muttered, "She's their commander. Better to finish it here." But the man shook his head. "No, she's still alive." "She's the enemy," another soldier protested. "She's still alive," he repeated, his voice firm. Then he stepped forward, slinging his rifle across his back. To Lorana's shock, he knelt beside her and reached for her arm. She tried to pull away, weakly resisting. Why are you—" He looked into her eyes, his voice calm. "Because no one deserves to be left for dead, not even you." His words struck her like a blade, but not of steel, of truth. No one in her people would have said that. No Valari would waste time on a broken commander, yet here was a human, an enemy, choosing to help her. Before she could protest again, he lifted her carefully in his arms. His grip was strong, but not cruel. She felt her head fall against his chest, the steady beat of his heart echoing in her ears. "Sergeant," one of the soldiers said, frowning. "Command won't like this. We're not supposed to bring them back." "Then Command can yell at me later," he replied. "We're not leaving her here." The squad hesitated, but none dared to argue further. They followed their leader as he carried the alien princess through the broken halls, back toward the waiting human shuttle. Lorana was too weak to fight him. She could only stare up at his face, memorizing the sharp lines, the scar, the strange fire in his eyes. She had been taught that humans were monsters, but monsters did not carry their enemies from the jaws of death. As the shuttle doors closed behind them, the battlefield faded into the distance. For the first time since the battle, Lorana felt warmth, not from her people, not from her throne, but from the arms of an enemy who refused to abandon her. Her mind swirled with confusion, fear, and something else she could not yet name. But one thought rang clear through it all. She had been left for dead, until a human gave her a second chance. The hum of the engines filled the medical bay. The air smelled of antiseptic and iron, mixed with the faint sting of recycled oxygen. White lights glowed overhead, steady and bright, chasing away the shadows of war. Princess Lorana lay on a human bed, her wounds wrapped in strange bandages that pulsed faintly with healing medicine. A soft screen above her head displayed her heartbeat in green lines, steady now, but slower than it should have been. The human doctors had saved her life. Her eyes opened slowly. For a moment she did not remember where she was. She saw white walls, metallic doors, and strange machines that hummed quietly around her. Then memory struck. Her ship destroyed, her people gone, and the human soldier who had carried her from the wreck. Her golden eyes narrowed. She had not been taken by friends. She was in the hands of enemies. The door slid open with a hiss. A human stepped inside, carrying a small tray of food. He was tall, with dark hair cut short and a scar across his jaw. His eyes were sharp, but calm, the same eyes she had seen before she lost consciousness. It was him, the one who had lifted her from death. Sergeant Daniel Rains. He placed the tray on the small table near her bed. The food was simple: a bowl of broth, a piece of bread, and a clear container of water. "You're awake," he said, his voice even. Lorana turned her head away, refusing to meet his gaze. Her pride still burned, even though she was too weak to rise. "Why am I here?" she asked coldly. "Because you would have died out there," Daniel replied. "And I don't leave people to die." She gave a bitter laugh, though it hurt her chest. "I am not one of your people. I am your enemy. You should have left me." Daniel shook his head. "Enemy or not, you're still alive. That's enough." His words confused her. No Valari commander would have said that. Among her people, weakness was death, and no one would waste resources on a fallen soldier. Yet this human acted as if life itself had value, even the life of an enemy. She eyed the tray of food, then looked back at him. "Do you expect me to eat human food?" "It's safe," Daniel said simply. "The medics checked what your body can handle. You need strength." Her pride told her to refuse. Her stomach told her otherwise. She had not eaten since before the battle. Slowly, with trembling hands, she reached for the bowl. She sipped the broth, expecting bitterness, but it was warm, simple, and filling. Daniel watched silently, not mocking her, not rushing her. He only stood nearby, arms crossed, as if making sure she would be all right. Finally, she set the bowl down and looked at him. "Why are you here?" "I wanted to see how you were doing." Her eyes narrowed again. "You saved me. Why? Was it for some reward? Do you want me as your prisoner? Your trophy?" Daniel's voice was calm, steady. "I don't want rewards. I don't want a trophy. I just didn't want to watch someone bleed out alone." His words struck her again, harder this time. She did not understand him. The Valari saw humans as savages, yet this man's actions spoke of something else, something she could not name. Silence stretched between them for a moment. Then Daniel turned toward the door. "Rest. You'll need it." As he left, Lorana's gaze lingered on him. She hated that part of her wanted to believe his words. Whispers among the crew days passed. Lorana remained in the medical bay, slowly, recovering. The human doctors checked on her, but they kept their distance, always guarded. She noticed the way the crew looked at her when they walked past the room. Some were curious, others suspicious, and a few clearly angry. She overheard whispers. "Why is she here? Do you know who she is? That's the Valari princess. Daniel's lost his mind. Saving her could cost us all." The whispers reminded her of her own people. If she had returned to the Valari alive, but saved by humans, they would have called her weak, unworthy, even a traitor. And yet, she had been left behind by them. Only the humans had carried her out. One evening, Daniel returned again. This time, he pulled up a chair beside her bed. "You're healing well," he said. She studied him carefully. "Why do the others look at me like I'm poison?" Daniel sighed. "Because to them, you are the enemy. They lost friends in that battle. They see you as part of the reason." Her lips pressed into a thin line. She knew this truth already, but hearing it from him was different. "And what about you?" she asked. "Do you see me as the enemy?" He leaned back in his chair. His eyes were tired but steady. "I see you as a person who didn't deserve to die alone in a broken ship." His answer was simple. Too simple, yet it carried a weight she could not ignore. First signs of trust. The days turned into weeks. Her wounds closed, though her strength returned slowly. During this time, Daniel visited often. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes he only sat in silence, watching the stars through the small window in the medical bay. At first, their words were sharp, filled with suspicion. But slowly, conversations grew longer. He asked her about Valari, technology, about the way her people lived. She answered cautiously, revealing little. Yet he listened with interest, not mockery. She asked him about humanity, their strange habit of never abandoning their soldiers. He told her stories of battles where humans carried their wounded across fire and death, refusing to leave even one behind. Lorana could not understand it. To her people, leaving the weak behind was a sign of strength. To the humans, it was dishonor. One night as they spoke, she asked the question that had burned in her since the moment he saved her. "Why?" she whispered. "Why risk your life, your crew, your command, just to carry me out? You could have left me. It would have been easier." Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because I've seen what it's like to be left behind. I wouldn't wish that on anyone." There was pain in his voice, a memory he did not share. Lorana did not press further, but she understood enough. He was not just speaking of her. He was speaking of himself. For the first time, she felt a spark of something unfamiliar toward a human. Not trust yet, not friendship, but the beginning of respect. The choice her recovery neared its end when new orders arrived for the human ship. The officers gathered to discuss it, but Lorana heard parts of the argument through the walls. "Command wants her turned over," one voice said. "She's too valuable not to use." "She's not a bargaining chip," another voice, Daniel's, argued. "She's a person." "Daniel, she's their princess. Do you know what she's worth to them?" "She's worth more than a tool. She's not going back in chains." The words made Lorana's chest tighten. Her own people would never have argued for her like this. To them, she had already been discarded, yet this human soldier fought for her as if her life mattered. That night when Daniel came to check on her, she looked at him with new eyes. "My people would not have done the same for you," she said quietly. "I know," Daniel replied. "But that doesn't change what's right." For a long moment, neither spoke. The stars outside the window glimmered in silence, cold and eternal. Finally, Lorana whispered, "Perhaps I was wrong about humans." Daniel gave a small, tired smile. "And maybe I was right about you." For the first time, she allowed herself to believe it. Maybe she was not just a prisoner. Maybe, just maybe, she was being given something her people never offered, a second chance. The human vessel drifted in the quiet of space, its hull glowing softly under the distant starlight. Inside, life continued as normal. Soldiers patrolled the halls, engineers repaired machines, and doctors tended to the wounded. Yet beneath this rhythm, tension was growing. Princess Lyrana felt it each time she walked the narrow corridors under guard. Though her strength had mostly returned, she was never truly free. Human soldiers kept their eyes on her, some with open suspicion, others with quiet curiosity. None smiled at her. Only Sergeant Daniel Rains treated her with something more than duty. Still, she could not ignore the whispers. She shouldn't be here. She's dangerous. If Command finds out he's protecting her, he's finished. She heard them all, even when spoken in hushed tones. And though her pride told her to ignore them, a small, unfamiliar ache pressed inside her chest. She did not want to admit it, but a part of her feared what would come next. A message. Across the stars one evening, while Lorana stood by the observation window, watching the endless night, Daniel approached. His steps were steady, though his face was more serious than usual. "There's something you should know," he said. She turned to him. "What is it?" He hesitated, then spoke. "Your people know you survived." Her heart stopped for a moment. "How?" "They intercepted our transmissions. Command informed me that the Valari Dominion sent a reply. They don't want you back." The words cut deep. She felt her breath shake as she looked away from him. Her own people, the ones she had bled for, commanded, and protected, had declared her unworthy. "Do they think I betrayed them?" she asked softly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "They called you compromised, that your survival among humans dishonors their code. They've declared you unfit to lead." Her chest burned with anger and grief. All her life she had been taught that loyalty to the Dominion was everything. Yet in her darkest hour, they had abandoned her. Now they wanted to erase her name, as if she had never lived. "I gave them everything," she whispered, "and they left me to die. Now they call me traitor." Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady but softer. "Sometimes the people we give everything to don't deserve it. But you're still here, that means something." She looked at him then, truly looked, and saw not pity, but respect in his eyes. And for the first time in her life, she wondered if loyalty should be given, not demanded, a dangerous debate. The human officers soon gathered in the command room. Lyrana was not allowed inside, but she caught fragments of the debate as she passed by with her guard. "She's their princess," one officer argued. "If we hand her over, we could end this conflict faster." "And if we don't?" another asked. "She's a target. Keeping her here puts us all at risk. She's a living weapon. Their people may come for her." Daniel's voice rose above the rest. "She's not a weapon. She's a person, and I won't let her be used like a tool." Lyrana paused outside the door, her heart pounding. She had expected Daniel to argue for her safety, but hearing his defiance against his own commanders shook her. He risked his honor, his career, perhaps even his life, just to defend her, for her, an enemy. She turned away quickly, hiding the sting of tears in her eyes. Betrayal in the shadows. That night, while the ship slept, shadows moved silently through the halls. 3 figures cloaked in dark armor slipped aboard, bypassing the human, guards with cunning stealth. They were Valari assassins trained for silence and death. Their mission was simple: erase the shame of the princess who had survived. Lyrana awoke to the hiss of her door sliding open. At first, she thought it was Daniel, but the shapes that entered carried no warmth in their eyes. She recognized the curved blades they held, the blades of her own people. Her breath caught. "You," she whispered. Silence. One of them hissed. "You are no princess. You are a disgrace. You will die here, and your name will be forgotten." They moved forward, swift and merciless. Lyrana stumbled back, her body still weak, searching for something to defend herself with. But she had no weapon, no armor, no strength to face them, and then the door burst open. Daniel stormed in, rifle raised. His eyes blazed with fury as he shouted, "Get away from her!" The assassins turned, blades flashing. One lunged at him, but Daniel fired, his shot striking true. The figure fell, armor sparking. The other two rushed him, their blades clashing, against his rifle as he blocked them, shoving one back with raw strength. Lyrana watched in shock as the human fought with everything he had. Not for his crew, not for his orders, but for her. Every strike, every shot, was a promise he would not let her fall. One assassin slipped past his guard, blade arcing toward Lyrana. She froze, but at the last moment, Daniel threw himself in front of her, the blade cutting across his armor. He grunted in pain but held his ground, driving his attacker back with a savage strike of his rifle. The final assassin, seeing the fight lost, vanished into the shadows, fleeing before more soldiers arrived. Silence filled the room, broken only by Daniel's heavy breathing. He leaned against the wall, blood seeping from the cut in his side. Lyrana rushed to him, her hands trembling. "You're hurt." "I've had worse," he said with a strained grin. "Are you all right?" She stared at him, her chest tight. You took a blade for me." "Of course I did," he replied simply. "I told you I won't let you be left behind." Her throat closed with emotion she could not name. Her own people had sent killers to erase her. A human soldier had risked his life to save her. The contrast burned deep inside her heart. A bond forged in danger. The next day, the ship buzzed with tension. The assassins had proven that Lyrana was not safe even among humans. Some officers demanded she be confined permanently. Others argued she should be sent away. But Daniel stood firm. "She stays," he said. "We protect her. That's what we do." Lyrana sat quietly in the corner of the medical bay, watching as he argued again and again for her life. She could hardly understand it. To him, protection was instinct, not strategy. To her, it was something foreign, almost unbelievable. Later, when they were alone, she finally spoke. "Why do you fight for me, Daniel? Your people question you. Mine want me dead. Yet still you stand at my side." He looked at her, his scar catching the dim light. "Because you're more than what they call you. I see it in you. You're not weak and you're not worthless. You're someone who deserves a second chance." Her chest tightened at his words. For so long she had carried the weight of duty, the burden of a throne that demanded perfection. She had been judged only by what she could give her people. Now, here was a man who judged her simply as herself. Slowly, she reached out, her hand trembling. For a moment she touched his arm, the first gesture of trust she had ever given a human. "Thank you," she whispered. The princess's resolve. The attack had changed something in her. The Valari assassins had proved that her people no longer claimed her. But the humans had proved that compassion could exist even in war. She no longer saw herself as a discarded heir. She was alive, and because of Daniel, she had been given a chance to choose her own path. As the ship sailed through the stars, Princess Lyrana began to imagine a different future, one not bound by betrayal, but by the fragile bond forming between herself and the soldier who had refused to let her die. For the first time, she was not just surviving. She was beginning to live. The ship carried on through the dark of space, but peace did not return. The attack by Valari assassins had left scars not just on the walls but in the hearts of the crew. Guards now walked the halls in pairs, weapons always ready. Engineers checked the doors and sensors twice, sometimes 3 times. Everyone looked over their shoulders, knowing danger could come again at any moment. And at the center of this storm was Princess Lirana. Some whispered that she was cursed, that keeping her aboard only invited more death. Others believed she was a chance for peace, though that hope was smaller, weaker. Every glance at her held questions. Why had Sergeant Daniel Rains saved her? Why was she still breathing when so many humans had died in the battle? Through it all, Daniel stood firm. He continued to guard her, train her, and speak with her. His belief did not falter, even when the crew doubted him. Training days one morning, Daniel entered the medical bay carrying 2 wooden training sticks. His side was still bandaged from the assassin's blade, but he walked as if nothing was wrong. Lirana raised an eyebrow. "What are those?" "Training tools," he said. "If your people send more assassins, you need to be ready." Her pride stiffened. "I am Valari. I trained with blades before you even learned to walk." "Maybe," Daniel replied calmly, tossing 1 stick to her. "But you're recovering, and humans fight differently. If you want to survive here, you need to learn our way too." Reluctantly, she took the stick. Her body still ached, but there was fire in her eyes. They moved to the empty hangar where space stretched wide and metal echoed every sound. Daniel showed her the stance first, feet apart, body balanced, weapon steady. She smirked at the simplicity, but when he struck at her, she barely blocked, in time. His style was raw, heavy, each blow meant to break defenses rather than dance around them. Valari combat was fast and graceful, like flowing water. Human combat, she realized, was like stone crashing down, relentless and unyielding. "You fight like a storm," she said, panting after their first round. "And you fight like fire," Daniel replied. "Fast, dangerous, but it burns out quick, if not careful." Day after day they trained. At first she stumbled, unused to his heavy strikes. But she was a quick learner. She blended her Valari grace with his human power, creating a style that was sharper, faster, and stronger than either alone. The crew began to notice. Soldiers who once sneered at her now paused at the hangar door, watching as she sparred with Daniel. Their eyes softened, just a little, as they saw her sweat and bleed, not as a princess, but as a warrior. Shared knowledge training was not only in combat. Lirana also shared her knowledge of Valari technology. She sat with engineers, showing them ways to improve power flow through their engines. She explained how Valari shields redirected energy rather than blocking it outright. At first, the engineers distrusted her, but when her ideas strengthened the ship's defenses, their doubts slowly turned to cautious respect. "Why help us?" one asked her. She thought for a long moment before answering. "Because your people saved me when mine left me behind, and because if I stay here, then your fight is my fight too." It was the first time she admitted aloud that she was no longer fighting for the Valari Dominion. She was fighting for survival, hers and theirs. The ambush hit was during a routine patrol near the edge of a star system that everything changed. The human vessel's scanners picked up signals, faint at first, then stronger. A fleet was closing in fast. "They're Valari," the officer reported, tension in his voice. 5 warships, moving in attack formation. The command room, filled with alarm. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned. Retreat was impossible. The Valari ships were faster. "They want her," another officer said, casting a glance toward Lirana. Daniel stepped forward. "Then they'll have to go through us." The captain's voice was grim. "Prepare for battle." Fire and steel, the first strike came like lightning. Valari plasma beams slashed across space, hammering against the human shields. The ship shook violently, alarms screaming. Crew members scrambled to their stations, firing back with everything they had. The hangar roared with sound as weapons charged. Fighters launched into the black, darting like sparks against the massive Valari ships. Lirana stood beside Daniel on the command deck, watching the battle unfold. She saw the way humans fought, Not with elegance, not with perfect order, but with raw determination. Their ships were smaller, weaker, but they refused to give ground. "They're holding too tight," she said suddenly. "Their formation leaves gaps if we strike here." She pointed to the screen tracing the lines of Valari ships. The captain frowned. "And how would you know?" "Because I was trained in their formations," she replied. "And I know how to break them." There was silence for a moment. Then Daniel spoke firmly. "She's right. We should listen." The captain hesitated, then gave the order. The human ship adjusted course, diving toward the weak spot Lorana had pointed out. Fighters swarmed with them, striking hard and fast, and the gap opened. The Valari formation broke, confusion spreading through their ranks. Cheers erupted on the command deck. For the first time, victory seemed possible. Fighting side by side, the battle raged on for hours. The human vessel took hit after hit, its hull scorched and burning. Fires erupted in the corridors, smoke filling the air, but still, they fought. Daniel and Lorana moved together, rallying the soldiers. When power failed in one section, she showed engineers how to reroute it. When boarding parties stormed the halls, she fought with Daniel at her side, her blade and his rifle striking as one. She moved with Valari grace, he with human strength. Together, they were unstoppable. At one point, as the smoke thickened and alarms blared, Daniel turned to her. "You fight like one of us now." She gave him a fierce smile. "No, I fight like both." The turning point, as the battle neared its peak, the Valari flagship moved in for the kill, its weapons charged, preparing to fire a blast that would tear the human vessel apart. Lorana's eyes widened. She recognized the weapon, a prototype she had seen once in secret meetings of her people. "That blast will destroy us, but it takes time to charge. If we strike the core here," she pointed at the screen, "we can disable it." The captain looked uncertain. "It's suicide to get that close." Daniel stepped forward. "Then I'll take the strike team." Lorana's voice was firm. "I'm going too. I know the ship's design." There was no time to argue. Together, they boarded a small assault craft with a handful of human soldiers. Under heavy fire, they raced toward the Valari flagship, weaving between beams of plasma and burning wreckage. They crashed into the hangar, weapons ready. Valari warriors rushed to meet them, but Lorana and Daniel led the charge. She cut through enemies with deadly precision, while he fought with raw power, covering each other's backs. They pushed through corridor after corridor until they reached the core chamber. The weapon hummed with energy, glowing brighter with each passing second. "Cover me!" Lorana shouted, rushing to the controls. Her fingers flew across the panel, shutting down fail-safes, redirecting energy. Sparks flew as alarms blared. Daniel held the line, blasting enemies who stormed into the chamber. His voice was a roar of command, steady and unbroken. Finally, with one last strike of her blade into the console, the weapon exploded in a burst of light, disabled, its energy scattering harmlessly into space. The Valari flagship shuddered. Chaos spread among its crew. And in that moment of weakness, the human fleet struck with everything they had left. The enemy ships broke and fled, retreating into the dark. A newborn silence returned at last. The human vessel floated battered but alive. Fires dimmed, alarms faded, and the crew looked at one another with exhaustion and pride. They had survived. On the command deck, cheers rose when Daniel and Lorana returned. For the first time, the soldiers looked at her not as an enemy, but as one of them. "You saved us," a young soldier said to her, eyes wide with awe. Lorana felt something stir inside her chest. She had been trained to believe humans were beasts, unworthy of trust. Yet here they stood, smiling at her, cheering her, treating her as part of their family. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Daniel stood beside her. The stars shone brightly, reflecting in his eyes. "You were right about the weak spot," he said. "We couldn't have won without you." She looked at him, her voice soft but firm. "And I couldn't have done it without you. We fight best together, For a long moment they stood in silence, side by side, watching the stars, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as two warriors forged in fire. The battle was over, but silence did not mean peace. The human vessel floated among the wreckage of destroyed fighters and broken Valari ships. Fires were out, systems were slowly coming back, but the wounds of battle still burned deep. For hours, engineers worked to repair power lines and patch hull breaches. Medics rushed from one wounded soldier to another, their hands stained with the struggle to keep lives from slipping away. Every corner of the ship carried scars of survival. Princess Lirana walked through the corridors with Daniel beside her. Everywhere they went, soldiers stopped to stare. Some gave her respectful nods, others even whispered words of thanks. The woman they once distrusted now walked as a comrade. For the first time since her capture, she felt she belonged. The council of voices later, the captain called for a meeting. The command deck filled with senior officers, tactical advisors, and a few soldiers who had fought bravely in the boarding mission. Lirana was invited too. Maps and star charts flickered on the screen. The Valari Dominion will not forget this defeat, the captain said, his voice heavy. They will return stronger and they will bring their full fury. We cannot outrun them forever. Murmurs filled the room. Some spoke of fleeing deeper into human-controlled space. Others argued they should strike back before the Valari reorganized. Finally, one officer turned toward Lirana. You know their tactics, their fleets, their leaders. What do you say, Princess? The room went quiet. All eyes turned to her. For a moment, she felt the weight of her people's betrayal pressing down on her chest. Then she raised her head and spoke with steady strength. The Dominion will not forgive me. To them I'm already dead. But I also know their pride. They will not admit defeat easily. They will send more fleets, not just to kill you, but to make an example of you. If humanity does not stand together, you will be broken. Her words hung in the air. Daniel spoke next, his voice deep and steady. Then we stand together. We fought them once and we won. We'll do it again. But we'll need allies. We can't win this war alone. The captain nodded slowly. Perhaps it is time humanity steps out of the shadows. If the Valari threaten, not just us, but the balance of the galaxy, then others may be willing to listen. Seeds of trust days turned into weeks as the ship limped back toward human space. During that time, something began to change between the humans and Lirana. She joined meals in the mess hall, where soldiers shared food and stories with her. At first, it was awkward. Many still remembered friends who had fallen to Valari blades. But slowly, laughter replaced silence. She learned human jokes, told them tales of Valari worlds, and even sang once in her soft alien tongue. The crew no longer saw her as a prisoner. She was part of them. Daniel noticed it too. Sometimes he watched, from a distance as she spoke with the younger soldiers, teaching them tricks of Valari language or showing them how to hold a blade in her style. He saw the way their eyes lit up, the way trust bloomed where fear once lived. It made him smile. She was not just surviving anymore. She was changing the hearts of those around her. A message from the stars one morning. Alarms rang across the ship. But this time, it was not an attack. A transmission was coming through, coded in human military channels. The captain appeared on the screen, listening carefully. After a moment, he turned to the crew. We've been ordered to return to Earth. High Command wants to hear our report, and they want to meet the princess. Whispers filled the command deck. To bring a Valari royal to Earth itself? It was unthinkable, dangerous, bold. Daniel looked at Lirana. You ready for this? She gave a small, steady nod. If it means proving to your people that I am not their enemy, then yes. Arrival on Earth. The day the battered ship entered orbit above Earth, every crew member stood tall with pride. They had returned from the edge of death carrying victory in their hands. Below them, the planet shone in blue and green, alive with oceans and forests. To Lirana, it was breathtaking. Her home world was colder, harsher, full of steel and ice. But Earth was alive in a way she had never seen before. When she stepped off the ship, soldiers lined the landing platform. Some still glared at her, hands tight on their weapons, but many looked on with curiosity. Daniel walked beside her, his presence like a shield. He whispered softly, "Don't be afraid. Just be yourself. They'll see what I see." Together, they entered the great halls of the human high command, trials of doubt. The council chamber was massive, filled with leaders, generals, and advisors from across human colonies. At the center stood a circular table, glowing with projections of battles and stars. The highest general spoke first, his voice cold. "You bring us a Valari princess, one of the very rulers who sent fleets against us. Why should we not execute her as a message to her people?" Lyrana lifted her chin, refusing to cower. "Because I did not choose their war. I was left to die by my own kind. And because without me, your ship would already be dust in the void." Her words echoed. She described how she had guided the humans in breaking the Valari formation, how she had fought alongside them, how she had disabled the enemy flagship's weapon. Some of the council members listened. Others frowned, unmoved. Then Daniel stepped forward. His voice carried the weight of a soldier who had seen too much war. "She saved us. She fought harder than many of my own men. And she didn't have to. She could have let us die, but she didn't. If you can't see that, then maybe we've already lost, because the Valari believe we can't trust anyone outside our kind. Prove them wrong." The chamber went silent. Finally, the general leaned back in his seat. "Very well, she will live, but her fate will depend on what comes next." A new alliance weeks passed on Earth. Lyrana was kept under close watch, but she was not a prisoner. She spoke before assemblies, answering questions about the Valari Dominion. She shared knowledge of their fleets, their weapons, their pride. Slowly, the idea began to grow among human leaders. Perhaps the princess was not just a survivor, but a bridge. For the first time in history, humanity had something the Valari feared. A voice that came from within their empire, standing now with humans. And so the High Command made a bold choice. They declared an alliance with Princess Lyrana, not as a captive, but as a partner. Together, they would prepare for the greater storm to come. Between two worlds one evening, long after the council sessions ended, Daniel found Lyrana on the balcony of the Capitol Tower. She stood in silence, watching Earth's moon rise. "You've changed everything," he said quietly. She turned to him, her eyes soft. "I thought I had lost everything. My throne, my people, my purpose, but here, I have found something else." "What's that?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "A second chance. Not just for me, but for all of us." The wind moved softly around them. Neither spoke for a long while. Words were not needed. In that silence, trust was enough. The beginning of hope, months later, when the Valari Dominion sent envoys demanding the return of their lost princess, humanity answered. With strength. "No," the council declared. "She is free. She has chosen her path." The Dominion raged, threatening war, but humanity stood firm, stronger than before. With Lyrana's guidance and human courage, the galaxy was no longer so certain of Valari supremacy. And as the first stars of dawn rose above Earth, Daniel and Lyrana stood together once more. They knew battles would come, greater than any they had faced, but they also knew they were not alone. Because in the end, it was not just about war. It was about something far greater, about hope, about unity, and about the truth that even the deepest wounds could heal when trust was given a chance. And so their story did not end in darkness. It began in light, a second chance, earned in fire, sealed in trust, and carried into the stars.